Hello all my 5th graders, this is Miss Briscoe and this is your next math lesson for this module. What you're going to need to do if you haven't already done it is you want to go through and pull out of the notes document below Math Chapter 1 Lesson 7. So if you need to, pause the video and go ahead and pull those math notes out. You can either print them out, write on a piece of notebook paper, or you can use a PDF writer such as Sketch or Top Notes, whatever you would prefer. That's what you can do. But just make sure after we get done with this lesson that these notes go in the math section of your interactive binder for future reference. You can use them when you're practicing on your assignment today, as well as in the future for any projects or assessments that you're going to have. So our goal for today is I can multiply by 2-digit numbers. So you're going to learn how to multiply a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number today. And this is one of the ways that you can do it. Remember that you can always go back and re-watch this video to look at the steps at any time. It's always going to be here for you. All right. As always when multiplying, our first step that we want to do is we want to estimate. What do we think our product will be when we multiply 28 by 18? So I've already done the estimation for you, but let's go through those steps just as a review. When you're estimating by the largest digit in the number. So for 28, my 2 is in my tens place, which is my largest place value. So I'm going to look over at my 8 and remember, 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So 5 or more means 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 4 or less means 4, 3, 2, 1. So if I'm at my 2 and I look over at my 8, that's 5 or more. That means I'm going to raise the score. So my 2 raised up to a 3, and any other numbers turned to a 0. So I have 30. If I look over at my 18, my 1 is my largest place value. It's in the tens place. My 1, I'm going to look over at my 8. It's 5 or more, so that means my 1 moves up to a 2, and any other numbers turn to a 0. So now I have 30 times 20. And we can use our strategy of using mental math. I'm going to multiply 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6, and I need to add 2 zeros. So my estimation is 600. I estimate that when I multiply 28 by 18, I'm going to get 600, or really close to it, because it's an estimation, not an exact amount. So let's go ahead and set up our problem. Remember, when we're multiplying, we want the number with the least amount of digits on the bottom, but in this case, both of our numbers have 2 digits, so you can decide which one goes on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and do 28 times 18. I want my 18 to be on the bottom. So the first step that we need to do is we are going to start with our ones place, so our 8 down here on the bottom, and we're going to multiply that by 28. So we're going to take our ones on the bottom and multiply it by our entire number on the top. So I can just write over here 28 times 8. Okay, so 28 times 8. If I do 8 times 8, that is 64. Bring my 4 down here, carry my 6. Then I'm going to do 8 times 2. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 6 is going to be 22. So 28 times 8 is 224. I'm going to bring that back over here. So now I've multiplied my ones in the bottom by both my numbers up top. Okay, I'm going to rewrite my problem so that we can do our next step. The next step is to multiply the tens. We've multiplied our ones times the top number. Now you're going to multiply your tens times the top number. So I'm going to multiply my tens place times my top number. So I have 28 times 1. So 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. Now remember, this is your tens place that you are multiplying. So 28 tens, remember when we went back to place value, 28 tens, that means it would equal 280. because it is 28 tens. So that's kind of like saying I have 28 tens, so 28 times 10, and that would give me 280. So what you're going to write down here is you're going to write your 280, and do you see how I lined up my place values very nicely? So your last step is you are going to add your two partial products. So let me go ahead and rewrite my problem to keep my steps in order, so when you look back at this, you'll know exactly what you had to do at each step. You're going to add your partial products. That means that you're going to add the two products you got from multiplying your 1s and your 10s. 4 plus 0 is 4. 8 plus 2 is 10, so I need to write my 0 and carry my 1. 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Remember, I love to circle my answer so I know exactly what it is. 504. So that means that 28 times 18 equals 504. And if we notice up at the top, our estimation was about 600. We're within 100 of 600, so I would say our estimation was pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you a problem to try down in this bottom right hand corner. Okay, so you're going to multiply a 2-digit number by a 2-digit number, and you first need to estimate. Okay, so when I write the number, you're going to estimate and then you are going to solve it. And you're going to pause this video, estimate and solve the problem, and then come back and watch to see if you did it correctly. And remember, you can re-watch through the steps before you try this if you really want to know the steps before you try it. So the number that I want you to multiply is I want you to multiply 32 times 15. So go ahead, pause the video. I want you to estimate and then solve 32 times 15 on your own, and then play the rest of the video to see if you did it correctly. Okay guys, so I hope everyone solved 32 times 15. Let's go ahead and estimate. If I did 32 times 15, I want to round to my highest place value, which is my tens for both numbers. I look over to the right. Remember, 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So my 3, I'm going to look over at my 2. 2 is 4 or less. That means my 3 stays the same, and all the other numbers turn to 0. So I have 30. Then I'm going to look at my 15. 1, I look over at my 5. It's 5 or more, so that means I'm going to raise the score. So my 1 becomes a 2. Every other number becomes a 0. Then I'm going to use some mental math. 3 times 2 is 6. And I add 2 zeros, so 600. So my estimation is 600, which is pretty interesting because our first problem, it was 600. So we have an estimation of 600, so we're saying that 32 times 15 is going to be really close to 600. Not exactly 600, but really close. So let's start with our first step. The first step is to multiply your ones by your top number. So if I do 32 times 5, 5 times 2 is 10, carry my 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. Remember, this is my ones place, so it's 160 ones. So I'm going to write 160 over here. I can cross that off so I don't get confused. The next step is to multiply the 10s. So you're going to take your 10s on the bottom and multiply it by the top number. So 32 times 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. Now remember, this is the tens place, so I have 32 tens. That means I need to add 1 0. So I would write 320, which is the same as saying 32 tens. And my last step is to add my partial products. So these two products that I got is my last step. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 2 is 8. And 3 plus 1 is 4. So if you can see, my answer to 32 times 15 is 480, and that is really close to my estimate of 600. So we were really close to that estimate. If you got it correct, great job, and go ahead and move on to the practice. If not, go back and rewatch the steps and see maybe where you might have missed a step, or check your multiplication. All right, you guys have a great day. I look forward to talking to you soon.